Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wondered if animals can be musical, or what makes humans so good at music? Well, this fascinating new perspective paper dives deep into that very question, asking if we are musical animals and if musicality can exist beyond humans. Think about music. It is all around us, from the songs we sing to the rhythms that make us tap our feet. For a long time, scientists thought it was too tricky to study the evolution of music because, well, music doesn't fossilize. You can't dig up old tunes. But in the last couple of decades, a whole bunch of smart people from different fields, psychologists, biologists, neuroscientists, are starting to treat musicality not just as a cultural thing but as a biological capacity. This idea, musicality, is like the built-in ability that lets humans hear, create, and enjoy structured sound. This new way of looking at things is changing everything. Instead of just looking at music itself, the art form, researchers are focused on the underlying musicality, the biological capacity that allows us to be musical. And they're finding some incredible things. For example, even brand new babies seem to have an innate sense of rhythm and pitch, separate from learning language. This suggests that our capacity for music might be something we are born with, a kind of biological predisposition. It's like we have built-in music detectors. Even before babies can talk, they can grasp musical patterns. And it's not just us. Scientists are looking at animals to see what parts of this musical capacity might have evolved over time. This is where comparative cognition comes in. It's like zoology for the brain. The idea here is simple. If a trait is found in closely related species, like humans and apes, it probably existed in our shared ancestor. If a similar trait shows up in very different species, like birds and humans, it suggests that nature stumbled upon a similar solution, independently, a phenomenon called convergent evolution. For instance, studies with monkeys have shown that they can adapt their movements like tapping to human music. This gives us clues about the brain machinery needed to perceive a beat, which is a core part of musicality. But it's important to remember, just because an animal makes a sound that sounds musical doesn't mean they understand it like we do. The real test is what they can perceive, distinguish, or feel. So, musicality isn't just one big thing. It is more like a mosaic, a collection of different pieces that might have evolved at different times. And in different ways, some pieces might be really ancient and shared with many animals, while others might be uniquely human. Understanding this mosaic is key to figuring out how musicality grew over time. Now, a tricky part of studying music is our strong bias towards language. Because speech is so central to human communication, we often try to explain musical abilities through the lens of language. We might think music is just a side effect of how we process speech. But the research is showing this isn't quite right. Brain scans, for example, reveal that music and speech use different, or at least partly different, brain networks. And these networks might have evolved separately. Developmental studies show babies respond to musical elements long before they get words. And fascinatingly, some people who have severe trouble with language because of brain damage can still enjoy and even create music. And on the flip side, some people have a condition called amusia, where they can't process music, but their language skills are perfectly fine. Even when we look at animals, birds and marine mammals, like whales and dolphins, have these complex sounds with rhythm and melody, and they don't have words. These examples of dissociation strongly suggest that musicality isn't just a byproduct of language evolution. It might be an older capacity. Something that existed even before human language, and maybe even provided a kind of scaffolding for language to develop later on. Charles Darwin himself had this idea way back in the 1800s. So if musicality didn't come from language, where did it originate? A very strong idea is that musicality emerged from simpler pre-existing abilities. Things like our motor skills for planning and timing, our ability to perceive different pitches, and our emotional systems for feeling pleasure and reward. These are all basic building blocks. Over time, through evolution, these basic abilities likely got woven together into a more complex system. This system became a biological foundation for organizing and enjoying patterned sounds, which then helped pave the way for both human music and important aspects of language, like the tone of voice and taking turns in conversation. And now, with advances in genetics and genomics, we're starting to find links between specific genes and our musical abilities, like how well we synchronize to a beat. As we compare the genes of different species, we might soon be able to pinpoint the exact genetic changes that allowed musical cognition to emerge. This idea of musicality as a specialized but evolutionarily grounded cognitive system gives us a great way to understand all the different research findings we're seeing across so many fields. So what does all this mean? The explosion of research into musicality is really changing how scientists think about one of the things that makes humans so unique. It's no longer just about music history or music theory. It is deeply connected to big questions in how animals think, how babies develop, how our brains work, and even our genes. Instead of arguing about whether music is useful or not, scientists can now dig into how specific parts of musicality, like feeling the beat, expecting certain notes, or how music makes us feel, evolved and how they work in different animals. This deeper understanding has practical benefits too. Knowing more about musicality could help with therapies for language problems, movement disorders, and even emotional issues. It's about recognizing that music isn't just a fancy decoration in human culture, it's possibly at the core of what it means to be human, and that makes understanding its biological roots incredibly important. This perspective paper actually echoes the title of an essay about artificial intelligence from a person named Terry Winograd. It's a clever nod, suggesting we're at a similar formative period for understanding musicality. The paper suggests a visual approach to understanding this, imagining a tree of life. On this tree, we can see how certain traits might have appeared. For example, a filled-in circle might mean a trait like vocal learning is shared between humans and monkeys. Suggesting it came from a common ancestor, a filled-in square could mean a trait like beat perception appeared independently in humans and birds because it was a useful solution for both. This kind of diagram helps us visualize these complex evolutionary paths. So, what is my take on this? I think it's incredibly exciting to see science moving beyond simply labeling music as a cultural product and exploring the deep biological roots of our musicality. The multi-component hypothesis, the idea of musicality as a mosaic of traits, makes a lot of sense. It explains why some aspects of music seem so universal, while others vary so wildly. One of the coolest parts for me is the decoupling of music from language. For so long, we've assumed that anything complex in sound must be tied to communication, specifically human language. But this research is showing that our brains might have had a capacity for patterned sound long before speech evolved, which is a mind-blowing thought. Of course, like any research, there are limitations. This paper is a perspective, meaning it's synthesizing a lot of existing research rather than presenting new experimental data. This is great for getting a big picture view, but it means the findings are based on the collective evidence, not a single definitive experiment. Also, trying to tease apart exactly which evolved traits contribute to musicality in humans is incredibly complex, and we're still in the early stages of understanding the genetic underpinnings. What's next? I'm really eager to see how genetics and comparative genomics continue to illuminate the evolutionary path of musicality. Can we find specific genes that are crucial for beat perception or pitch discrimination, and see how they've changed over evolutionary time across different species? I also think there is a lot of potential in exploring the emotional and social aspects further. How exactly did these pre-existing emotional reward systems become so intricately linked with pattern sound? This research really makes you think about music in a new light. It's not just entertainment, it's a fundamental part of our biological heritage. What are your thoughts on whether animals can be musical? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the science of music, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to Rubin's Mind Lab for more, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the human mind. Thanks for watching!